Welcome in to UIL Spotlight, and today we're taking a look at the softball state championships that happened just this past weekend down in Austin, Texas. I'm Mallory Hartley alongside Mr. Gavin Moritz. And Gavin, another UIL sport that has concluded for the 2025-2026 season. And man, we had some fun games down there in Austin, Texas this past weekend.
Yeah, Mallory, we sure did. One of the things I want to point out here about these games, there's 11 games across the 3 days at Red and Charlene McCombs Field in Austin. You only have one game for Class 1A. The rest, of course, each classification with 2 divisions. We had a wide variety in terms of what kind of games we got. We had some run rules, of course, we'll get to that. We had some very close games as well. We had some kind of middle ground games, a good variety in the games we had, but all of them were fun nonetheless, right?
Right, and I think it's really cool that they get to play these games at McCombs Field, like you said, down in Austin, Texas, where the famous Texas Longhorns get to play softball. So I feel like it adds just a little bit of that extra specialness to playing in those games.
Right, and of course they're getting to play in a ballpark where the team that is currently playing in the softball national championship at the time of filming this gets to play. So I think that's pretty special for all these girls to get to play in the home of a potential future national champion once again. Absolutely,
man. We've got 11 games, like you said, to get to. So let's go ahead and start off with the smallest classification in 1A. And man, Brooklyn takes on Jonesboro. And Gavin, let's go ahead here and take a look at the road to state for Brooklyn.
Yeah, Brooklyn, of course, trying to get back to the state tournament. They were here for the first time last year in 2025. Got through their opponents fairly swiftly in some of the series that they played in the first couple rounds, or at least in the area round of the regional semis. Regional finals, they got through Avery. I want to point that one out in a whopping single game series, 17-zip. Before getting through Moulton in the state semis 6-5 in a close one. Then you look at Jonesboro, right? Coming in, they're trying to go for the three-peat. They got through Ranger, they got through Abbott, Strawn, Ector, Cross Plains. They played series the whole way, and they only lost one game in their whole playoff run, losing that middle game 18-17 to Abbott in the area round.
And going for that three-peat, Jonesboro sure gets it. A thrilling game between Jonesboro and Brooklyn. Let's take a look at some highlights presented by Baylor Scott and White Health.
Yeah, and you see here Brooklyn getting it going early. Lake and Mott singling through the right side of the infield. Elizabeth Lundquist scoring. Lake and Mott advancing to second base on a throwing error. Later, in the bottom of the second, Graceland Lopez singling up the middle of the circle on a bunt. Lake and Mott scoring another throwing error. Graceland Lopez advancing to third on the play in the error. Kaylin Strother with a single up the middle in that half inning as well with an RBI, scoring Graceland Lopez. Mallory, this is a game that got away from Jonesboro early. Brooklyn led 5-0, but Jonesboro, the heart of the champion kind of deal here, right? They've won the last 2, going for the three-peat. They're not going to be denied. They would score 6 unanswered runs, including some special defensive plays like that tag out at second. But Jonesboro able to come through when it mattered the most. They get some runs going over the last couple of innings here. Top of the 7th, they would take the lead finally for good with Kylie Gould singling up the middle, scoring Adelina Andrade, Landry McFarland advancing from first base to third, and Kylie Gould advancing from second on the throw to eventually put them up 6-5 in the 7th and give them that win and give them the three-peat.
Absolutely, and our MVP is coming out of Jonesboro, and it's Miss Allie Thorman. Let's take a look and see what she had to say after the win, presented by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance.
Oh, it's almost like this is our home field now. We own this place now. Oh yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for next year. Yeah, next year we're definitely coming for anyone who ever shows up on this field. We're coming for it. We're going for that 4-peat. I promise.
Man, I love that energy. I like the part where she's like, we own this place. It feels like home, and we're coming for that 4-peat.
Right, and when they've been there the last couple of years, they've now won 3 in a row there at Red and Charlene McCombs Field. How can it not feel like home, right? They do own that place in Class 1A. Allie Thorman, absolutely correct on that matter.
Absolutely. Let's head on down to 2A Division 1, where Bosqueville takes on Ganado. Gavin, let's take a look at the road to state, presented by your Texas Ford dealers.
Yeah, and Bosqueville kind of coming through that Waco area. They get through Dilion, they get through Riesel, Alvord, Honeygrove, Cisco. They're playing, kind of those Central Texas, kind of maybe a little bit into East Texas teams. They're in 2A Division 1. They only dropped one game in their whole playoff series. They went series the whole way, of course. No one-gamers there. They dropped one game to Riesel in that second game 9-4. able to get through the last couple rounds to get to state. And then you look at Ganado. Ganado going the maidens for their second consecutive title after a historic 2025 season. A single game in the area round against Three Rivers. They get through them 16-0. Then wins over Danbury, Thorndale, and Groveton. A single game, and then a series to get back to state to defend their title.
Let's take a look at the highlights down there in Austin, presented by Baylor Scott and White Health.
Yeah, so Ganado trying to defend their title. Bosqueville looking for their first title since 2007. Ganado got it going early, scoring 2 runs in the top of the first frame and 3 more in the third. And it proved to be really all the maidens needed and then some. In the box for Ganado, Paley Hajovsky was impressive once again in 2026 on this very stage, going 2 for 4. She drove in 3. She scored a run herself in the process. Bosqueville was responsible for 5 defensive errors, Mallory, with only one of those runs by the Bulldogs that was allowed being an earned run. It was important to note that Ganado really took advantage of some mistakes from Bosqueville. Those errors responsible for almost all the runs that the maidens put up. Some self-inflicted wounds that hurt Bosqueville in the process. For Ganado, their star pitcher, Sailor Burris, was sensational. She went the distance, 7 complete, 6 hits, 2 earned runs, 11 Ks out of 29 batters faced.
Goodness. And like you said, Miss Sailor Burris, an absolute dominant performance by her down there in Austin. And sure enough, she's our MVP, Gavin.
Right, and Sailor Burris, again, she picked up win number 30 in the circle on the year, the most important, of course, on this big stage in the state championship. Capping off her junior campaign. She'll be back next year. Look at the 7 innings pitched, only 2 earned runs, and 11 Ks.
Strikeouts is crazy.
And what's crazy about this, Sailor Burris, again, like we said, she's coming back next year, and I feel like she still has some of her best work ahead of her, to be honest. This is impressive, but I feel like Ganado might be trying to run it back for a 3-peat next year with Miss Burris.
Man, and we always say, if you can shine on the biggest stage and the biggest moments, and you're coming back for another season, watch out, man. They're looking for that 2-peat there. Let's move on to 2A Division II, where we have a rematch in Shiner versus Sundown. Gavin, let's take a look at the road to state with both of these teams.
Yeah, Shiner is trying to get back, and they do, of course, to this state stage where they fell last year to Sundown in a very fun game that a lot of people probably remember from last year. Shiner in their playoff run, the last couple rounds, getting through Mumford in the series, 2-0. Burton and then Como-Picton, 2-1, winning that last one 17-3 to clinch their trip back to state. So the Lady Comanches getting through their playoff run there. Then you look at Sundown trying to come in and defend their title, getting through in the last couple rounds Groover, Haskell, Reagan County, and Munster. A little bit more variety in what Sundown was able to do in their playoff run in terms of playing single game versus series. Of course, the coaches do have to agree both to that single game, in order to avoid playing a series. So you get some kind of disparity there in terms of what each team's playoff runs may look like. But both teams getting back here to state for a repeat of last year's championship game.
Absolutely. It was such an electric game to watch. We'll take a look at some of these highlights here presented by Baylor Scott and White Health. Gavin, what stood out to you in this game?
Well, Sundown's going to strike first on a Shiner E4, which allowed Gregory to score, maintaining a 1-0 lead until that third inning when the Ruffettes would double their lead on a Bray Gregory RBI single into center that drove in Dominguez. Then it was Shiner's turn, right? The Lady Comanches would tie the ball game in the next half inning, posting 2 runs on an Addie Siegel RBI single through the left side, along with a Reagan Fluitt RBI knock into the gap in left center. In the 5th, Shiner would pour it on as Lauren Springfield would single to left center, driving in 2 before Chloe Polasek would put this game on ice with a sac fly a few batters later, scoring Grace Nevlud. Lauren Springfield, Mallory, goes a complete game in the circle. She goes for 7 innings, 1 earned run, 5 Ks, 7 hits allowed. And Shiner would get their get back, winning the 2A D2 state title over Sundown, winning this one 5-2.
Lauren Springfield, of course, is our 2A Division II MVP. You already kind of said her stats, man, but what a fantastic game by Miss Springfield.
Yeah, and Shiner really, all Lauren Springfield had to do was kind of keep this one in control, right? The offense put up 5 runs, so you're kind of thinking, okay, if Lauren Springfield can just kind of manage this game, and she didn't have to be sensational. She was sensational in my opinion, but she didn't have to be, right? The offense got it going, but she struck out 5. She only had the 1 earned run allowed, and that's really all Shiner needed her to do to get back and kind of avenge that loss last year over Sundown.
That's right, Gavin. We've got plenty more exciting games to get to. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
I've seen a lot of Jesus out on the open road. From up in Everybody loves Ford here in the Lone Star State. Ford is the best in Texas.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
Well, this doesn't look like finding yours in.
Tell me about it.
Shh. Let's get those allergies under control. No talking needed. There you go. You'll be breathing easier in no time. Take back the day. Same care you know and love, available the same day.
UIL Spotlight is brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, Baylor Scott & White Health, and your Texas Ford dealers.
Welcome back to UIL Spotlight. I'm Gavin Moritz. I'm joined here by Mallory Hartley. And now, Mal, we're going to look at Class 3A here on UIL Spotlight for the 2026 UIL State Softball Championships. We had some good games in Class 3A, didn't we?
We absolutely did. Let's start off here with 3A Division 1, Grandview taking on Iowa Park, and two teams that are really experienced once they got to the state championships this year, Gavin.
Yeah, and not only experience with the way they went through their playoff runs, you see here Grandview trying to defend that 2025 title, getting through in the later rounds, Orangefield, Franklin, Columbus, but also Iowa Park and a team that was in the state semis last year, and Iowa Park, another team just like Grandview that's got plenty of experience playing late into the playoffs, those deep playoff runs every late May, every early June. Iowa Park's playoff run, and you see they got through Peaster, Ingram, Tom Moore, Bushland, Jim Ned, Mineola.
That Peaster game, crazy.
Yeah, and Iowa Park in those series, the last 4 rounds, didn't have much trouble, especially against Jim Ned, and then against Mineola in that last game to clinch their trip to state 7-2 in the state semifinals.
Let's go ahead and take a look at some highlights here presented by Baylor Scott & White Health. Gavin, this is an interesting game because Grandview made it to the state championships and won last season. That's correct, right? And Iowa Park fell in the state semis last year.
Right, and so two teams that you kind of knew coming in, they had their weapons, they had their pitchers, but this one, Mallory, turned into a classic pitchers duel between Grandview and Iowa Park. It was a classic pitchers duel, best of the weekend in my opinion. Like I said, heading into the bottom of the 4th in a scoreless game, 3 combined hits up to that point between these two as Maddie Doty and Callista Barrett both put on a masterclass in the circle. But it was the Zebras who would break through as a KJ Hubbard RBI double, immediately followed by an Allie Mae reaching on a fielding error, allowing Hubbard to score. Would propel Grandview to a 2-0 win over the Iowa Park Lady Hawks. And Maddie Doty, man, incredible.
Man, 7 innings pitched and 14 strikeouts for our girl Maddie Doty in a crazy 2-0 game.
Yeah, and she also only allowed 3 hits. Like I said, no earned runs allowed. And get this, she struck out 14. She only faced 26 batters.
That's crazy.
Maddie Doty was electric, and she earned our MVP honors, and it's not hard to see why here.
Grandview going back-to-back in the 3A Division I state championship game. Let's head on down to 3A Division II, where Coahoma takes on Santa Gertrudis Academy. Gavin.
Yeah, and Coahoma here, Mal, is trying to get back to state. They've won the last 3 state championships here in Class 3A Division II now. Trying to win an unprecedented 4th title, and they've been the team of record, right? And they got through their playoff run fairly easy. Look at some of these run totals in some of these series that we see. 22 runs in the first game against Holiday, 11 in the second game in the regional final against Wall, 13 against Grand Saline in the state semis in that single game playoff. Coahoma showing why they are trying to go here for their 4th straight title, kind of breezing through their playoff run. Santa Gertrudis Academy out of that kind of coastal Bend area, getting through George West, Lyford, Poth, Jourdanton, and Kirbyville. Series most of the way minus that single game 10-1 win against Lyford in the area round. And these two teams ready to clash for the 3A Division II state title in Austin.
And I felt like in this game, maybe Santa Gertrudis Academy came into it maybe with a chip on their shoulder, knowing that Kahoma is kind of that premier dominant league in Texas high school girls softball.
Yeah, Santa Gertrudis Academy kind of came in saying, hey, we know what we're up against, and we're not scared of them, right? The two teams traded a few hits for the first 3 frames before Santa Gertrudis Academy broke through in the 4th. You see it right there. Kaylee Bazan in that first highlight knew it was gone, depositing that solo shot over the wall and left. An inning later, Haley Ortega drove in 2, doubling into the gap in right center before Kaylee Bazan picked up 2 more RBI with a knock up the middle. Santa Gertrudis Academy got it done. They pull away from Kahoma and win this one 8-1 for their first state title since 2018. SGA on the stage in Austin certainly had a better week than the NBA version of SGA. The Lady Lions win it 8-1, bringing a title back to the Coastal Bend.
And our MVP coming out of St. Gertrudis Academy, it's Kaylee Bazan. You kind of already said her stats there, an electric game by Miss Kaylee. Let's take a look at what she had to say after their big win.
Yes, my freshman year, I didn't get to play when we came, so it was definitely a full circle moment coming, and all the hard work we've all put in, I put in, is definitely a really good feeling. Again, I can't say that enough.
She had a big smile on her face there, and it's really remarkable, the story that she has, tearing her ACL her freshman year and coming back and eventually winning that state championship game.
Yeah, and that's not an easy thing to do at all. You have to recover from what for a lot of people could be a career-ending injury as a freshman, and especially at that young age, that's a hard injury to overcome. She does. She gets back to that big stage at the UIL State Championship, and she put on one of the performances of the weekend, recovering from that injury a couple years later to win SGA their first state title since 2018.
Moving on to Class 4A, starting off with 4A Division I, Bullard taking on Prosper Richland. Gavin, interesting disparity between these two teams. Bullard, a team that's been around for years and years, and Prosper Richland, brand new program.
Yeah, Mal, Bullard has been around. This is year 127 of their school being around. I believe they opened in 1899. They got through their playoff run with wins against Vidor, Huffman, Sealy, Livingston, and then Cal Allen, kind of going through that southeast Texas part of the state. From some of those teams before getting through Corpus Christi, Cal Allen in the state semis, a team that has been here the last several years and done great things out of Cal Allen. Then you look at Prosper Richland here out of the DFW area. In their first year as a school, they are reaching the 4A Division I state championship. They got through Salina in a series, Kennedale, Sulphur Springs, Sanger, and Dumas. Prosper Richland trying to do what very few schools, if any, have ever done. I don't think many people have ever done this, if at all, winning a state title in their first year as a school. So 2 teams looking for their first state title. Here we go.
Let's take a look at some of these highlights presented by Baylor, Scott, and White Health. An exciting game, Gavin.
Yeah, Bullard would strike early in the bottom of the first inning. Kenzie Roberts drove in Kirsty Malone on a sac fly to right. Fast forward to the bottom of the 4th, Emery Baker cooked up a 2-run double, driving in Walker and Swanson. Prosper Richland never really got it going. They got blanked in this game. Bullard kind of showed why they had waited so long for their first state title. They've been here on the stage a couple of times. Brooklyn Brandon was electric in the circle. She went the distance with 2 hits, 1 walk, 9 Ks, and a complete game shutout on the biggest stage as the Bullard Panthers, after 127 years, this one was worth the wait.
Experience wins out in this one. In our Class 4A Division I MVP coming out of Bullard, Miss Brooklyn Brannon, with some crazy stats in this game.
Like I said, she went the distance, 7 complete innings, no earned runs, didn't allow any runs, did the team as a whole, 9 Ks. That complete game shutout would propel Bullard to their first ever title. Like we said, worth the wait.
Worth the wait indeed. Let's round out Class 4A with the 4A Division II state championship game between Brock and Liberty. And Gavin, what's so exciting about this matchup specifically is because these two teams are kind of the cream of the crop or premier teams in Texas high school softball.
Yeah, and especially in Class 4A, when you think about this specific classification, I would say it's Cal Allen, Brock, and Liberty are among the teams that you need to pay attention to, especially down in 4A D2. And the reason why both these teams are here, Brock has been here plenty of times. Liberty looking for their first title since 2022. Let's look at the playoff run, the road to state for Brock. They only lost 1 game. They went series the whole way, of course, against teams like Leveland, Eagle Mountain, Canyon, Randall, and Van Alstyne. They only dropped that game 2 to Leveland in the bi-district round. And then for Liberty, coming out of that between the Houston and Southeast Texas area, they get through Washington, Silsbee, Liberty, Robinson, Salado, and Wimberley getting some variety in terms of the teams and the regions that they played in the last couple rounds. Getting through Wimberley, the Texans in a single game series in the state semis, 4-0 to get back to the stage for the Liberty Panthers.
Both teams really showing how dominant they have been in this playoff run, especially Liberty. And you'll see just why here, taking a look at the highlights presented by Baylor Scott and White Health.
Yeah, and Liberty's going to waste no time here. Kenley Brashear's infield single allowing Kylie Bishop to score. The Lady Panthers would really start pouring it on in the middle innings here with Brashear doubling down, plus RBIs from Abby Key, Bailey Taylor, Kylie Bishop, and Jessie Fain. And Liberty, if you watch this game in real time, you kind of got the feeling they were not wanting to play the full game, and they didn't end up having to. This one only goes 6 innings, and Liberty would win this one 12-0 in 6, run ruling Brock to win this first state title for the Liberty Panthers since 2022. Didn't even need the full 7. Bailey Taylor, though, Mallory, exceptional in the circle for LP.
And she, of course, was our 4A Division II MVP of this game coming out of Liberty. And just look at those stats there. 6 innings played and 7 strikeouts in this game.
And she also only allowed 2 hits, and she only issued 2 walks as well. She was efficient, she got it done, and the offense helped pick up the slack that there wasn't much of anyways because of Bailey Taylor.
We've got a couple more games to get to. It's the big dogs. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
UIL Spotlight is brought to you by your Texas Ford dealers.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
Well, this doesn't look like finding your zen.
Tell me about it.
Shh. Let's get those allergies under control. No talking needed. There you go. You'll be breathing easier in no time. Take back the day. Same care you know and love, available the same day.
I've seen a lot of Texas out on the open road. From up in Amarillo down to San Antonio. No matter where I travel, one thing remains the same. Everybody loves Ford here in the Lone Star State. Ford is the best in Texas.
UIL Spotlight is brought to you by your Texas Ford dealers, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, and Baylor Scott and White Health.
Welcome back into UIL Spotlight. Let's get to the big dogs, starting with Class 5A. 5A Division I, Barbers Hill taking on Aledo. Gavin, in another matchup that seems like these two teams know something about softball. They've been dominant the past couple years.
Yeah, Barbers Hill is the premier team in Class 5A out of the greater Houston area, looking for their first title in about 5 years now. And Aledo, a team that's been here a couple of times themselves, riding high after one of the more surprising, perhaps, wins in the state semifinals, which we'll get to in just a moment, here on the Road to State, presented by your Texas Ford dealers. So you look at the Road to State for Barbers Hill here. They get through Angleton, College Station, Eastview, LaPorte, and Leander. Barbers Hill was kind of dominant all year, which it feels like year in, year out, they kind of are out of the Houston area, that north side of the greater Houston area, Mont Bellevue. Then you look at Aledo, and I want to touch here on Aledo, the state semifinals, that win over Melissa, who Melissa was in Region 2, coming out of Region 2, they won the region. The favorite, perhaps, to win the whole thing.
Right.
And they stunned Melissa 5-4 with that go-ahead home run in the 6th inning. And Aledo able to get through Melissa to set up a date with Mont Bellevue Barbers Hill at Red and Charlene McCombs Field.
And taking a look at some of these highlights presented by Baylor Scott and White Health, maybe a little bit shorter of a game than some people expected.
Absolutely. Maddie Ray and Savvy Barrientos were stellar in the batter's box for Barbers Hill. You see some of the highlights here. Maddie Ray and Barrientos combined for 5 hits and 8 RBI. Longtime Eagles coach, by the way, Aaron Fuller, managed this game really, really well with some of the pinch hitters he used, and some of the runners he was able to place in the game when he strategically needed to. But it was Maddie Ray and Macy Bryant who stole the show. Bryant throws, of course, a 5-inning, spoiler there, perfect game for Mont Bellevue Barbers Hill before Maddie Ray, we'll get to that in a second, blasted a walk-off, run rule, grand slam right here, immortalizing herself and Mont Bellevue Barbers Hill, giving the Eagles their first state championship on the softball field since that famed 2021 team that was led by Sophia Simpson and Samantha Landry.
I don't think anybody would have it any other way other than our MVP being Macy Bryant out of Barbers Hill. Gavin, seems to me like the performance of a lifetime for Macy.
100%. Macy Bryant, take a bow. Perfect game at state, in the state championship nonetheless. She goes 5 innings, no hits, no walks, of course. She faced the minimum of 15, struck out 9 of them. And for Barbers Hill to hit a walk-off grand slam, run rule Alito, and for Macy Bryant to throw a perfect game in the circle, talk about the state performance for a team, for Aaron Fuller's team, of a lifetime. Yeah,
I think so too. One of the most dominant games by a team that I have seen in a long time. Congratulations to Barbers Hill. Rounding out Class 5A, let's go to 5A Division 2. Talking about Montgomery Lake Creek taking on Brewer. Gavin, let's take a look at the road to state presented by your Texas Ford dealers.
Well, here's Montgomery Lake Creek coming, another team kind of in the northern part of Houston, kind of adjacent to Conroe there. Lake Creek has won 3 state titles this decade, looking for their 4th since 2022. They got through New Caney, West Fork, Santa Fe, Pflugerville, Weiss, Georgetown, and Liberty Hill. Montgomery Lake Creek, at this point, since they've started playing a few years back, no stranger to deep runs, no stranger to Red and Charlene McCombs Field in Austin. Then you look at Fort Worth Brewer. This is their first time appearing at state, and they clawed through a little bit their playoff run. Colleyville Heritage, that first opening series in the bi-district round, kind of a close one against Burleson in the area round. El Paso Parkland, Abilene Wiley, and Hallsville in the state semis. They got through Hallsville fairly easy in the state semifinals, but Brewer, like we said, the Bears kind of clawed through their playoff run to set up the date with Montgomery Lake Creek.
And while watching these highlights presented by Baylor, Scott, and White, it's kind of fun to keep in mind. This happens sometimes, but it's kind of fun to keep in mind that, like, Lake Creek, they're used to being here, right? But on the other hand, you have a team like Brewer who's never been here before.
Right, and for Brewer, it didn't really show early. At the top of the first, talk about getting it going early. Just minutes into the game, Cameron Pride cranked a 3-run blast. You knew Lake Creek, though, would respond. Bottom of the second, Gracie Brewer and Miranda Orso, back-to-back RBIs to bring the Lions within a run. An inning later, Sarah Wiggins, you knew she'd get going. She gets wiggy with it. It's a 2-run gaffer as the Lions would fight off a late Brewer rally. And Lake Creek would win a thriller, one of the better games of the entire weekend here. 6-5 behind another strong pitching performance from Sarah Wiggins, who we'll talk about, who finishes the year, by the way, Mallory, 33-0 in the circle. Win number 33, the most important of her season.
Wow, that is so impressive. Our MVP of this game coming out of Montgomery Lake Creek, it's Miss Madeline Davis. And man, 2 hits, 2 stolen bases, 2 runs for Miss Davis in this game.
And
very well earned.
And Madeline Davis, if you've watched Lake Creek the last couple of years, she's one of their more versatile players. She has a strong bat, but also extremely fast along the base paths, and a reason why you saw here 2 hits and 2 stolen bags on the biggest stage.
Miss Davis, our MVP of the 5A Division II state title game presented by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. Gavin, we got 2 games left, and it's the top of the top, the big dogs. It's Class 6A. Starting up at the very top, 6A Division I, Waco Midway taking on Pearland. Gavin, let's take a look at the road to state.
Waco Midway has been here, kind of the last couple of years. They're looking to defend their title from last year. Of course, we all know kind of what Waco Midway has been through in the last couple seasons on this stage at state softball. They kind of get through in their bi-district round, Duncanville, and then some more series wins. Rockwall Heath, Bridgeland, Conroe, Grand Oaks playing in Region 2 here, and then Flower Mound in the state semis. They win that series 2-1 after dropping the first game 4-zip. They come back 15-2, 8-zip to win that series. against the Jaguars in the state semis. Then you look at Pearland coming out of the south side of the Houston area. They get through Fort Bend Travis. They get through a very strong contender in Atascocita in the area round, Cypress Ridge, Cy-Fair in the regional final, and then state semis they drop Buda Johnson. After losing the first game 7-1, they win the next two 9-1 and 8-2. They respond well against Buda Johnson in the state semis to get back to this stage, and both teams looking to pick up another state win this decade.
Both teams with pretty dominant runs, Gavin, in their playoff run, essentially. Let's see how this game kind of fares out for both these teams.
It's going to start a little bit slow in the first two innings. They traded a couple opportunities, a couple base hits maybe here and there. Pearland breaks it open in the third, 4 runs in the top of the third inning. They would tack on another run in the top of the fifth, top of the sixth. Waco Midway against Mallory and Gavin struggled to get anything going really until that sixth inning when they finally broke through and got that first run. Pearland dominated essentially the first several innings. Guzman was electric in the circle. Midway would just kind of rally late, kind of get their opportunity come the seventh. But Pearland would ultimately win this one 6-3 with 11 hits. Midway committed 3 errors, which didn't help their cause. Pearland, though, scored 6 runs but left 12 on base. But they're not really worried about that as they win their state title here against Waco Midway.
Gavin, like you said, Madeline Guzman, electric in the circle. She earns our 6A Division I MVP out of Pearland, presented by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. And we actually got to catch up with her after the game.
I mean, I knew if anything went wrong, my defense is behind me, ready to make the play. This means everything for me. Pearland has such a great community, and I pride myself in my community because we're just so close, and yeah.
I think she said it best. Such a great community that Pearland is, because they've been around for such a long time, and they always seem to have great athletics there. But I think the community does such a great job of rallying around their athletic programs.
Yeah, and they're, again, one of the powers in 6A Division I now, and you'll see this a lot with the upper classifications where it's like, with a school like Pearland or a school like Katy that we're about to talk about next, perhaps. These are two teams that are, in a big part of Houston. They're big suburbs, but the teams really rally behind them, especially with their premier softball programs now.
We've got one game to get to. It's Class 6A Division II. Forney versus Katy. And let's just go ahead and take a look at the road to state, Gavin, because, spoiler, these two teams were so dominant in their playoff runs.
Forney for the Jackrabbits coming out of the DFW area, you kind of expected they'd be back here. Coming out of Region 2, they got through Rowlett, Harker Heights, Oak Ridge, a very good tomball team in the regional final, and they got through a very tough Denton Geyer team in the state semis in that series, 2-0, 1-0, and 7-5 in that game 2 to kind of clinch their trip back here. And then Katy, a team that's been here, they've done that. They get through Richmond George Ranch, Houston Memorial, Kingwood, a team that won state last year in 6A Division II. They knock off the reigning champs. They get through Clear Creek and PSJA in a series that they had to go to Corpus to play in the state semis. So, they had a little bit of travel before the week before state here, getting through PSJA out in Corpus. But for Katy, you couldn't really tell if they were tired or not, right?
No, you absolutely couldn't. Let's relive the highlights here presented by Baylor, Scott, and White Health. And Gavin, I think the main takeaway here, once we say the final score, is it was a lot closer than the score indicated.
Absolutely right. Katy is going to win this one, as we'll go ahead and spoil this one for you a little bit, but they get 2 runs in the top of the first. Forney would cut into the deficit. They'd cut it in half in the bottom of the third. It's 2-1. Katy would tack on 2 more in the top of the fourth, and then 2 more in the sixth. Forney, though, would have their opportunity late, as we'll kind of get to. They kind of get, they get a run in the bottom of the seventh, and they have their opportunities really in the last several batters, but Katy's able to put this one away and win another state title. And Katy, even in the last couple of years, has had a coaching change. Their old coach, Coach Hack, retired. They get a new coach. They really haven't come in and missed that much of a beat. But for the Tigers, this is kind of what we expect them to do. Strong hitting, especially strong pitching. Haley Schmidt was incredible. She goes the distance. 5 hits allowed, 2 runs, no earned runs, 2 walks, 8 Ks in the 31 batters she faced. And Haley Schmidt and the Katy Tigers get it done for the City of Champions, giving Katy another state softball title. Such
a dominant run from start to finish from the Katy Tigers, and especially our 6A Division II MVP out of Katy, Miss Haley Schmidt.
And Haley Schmidt all year was incredible. Katie's got a really good staff of pitchers that they can use, and a lot of them can hit too, which is especially impressive. But Haley Schmidt here stole the show. She was the star. Like we said, 7 innings pitched. She goes the complete game, no earned runs, 8 Ks. And she sat down, for the most part, a very, very formidable Forney lineup to give Katie the 6A D2 state title here in 2026.
Absolutely. Well, Gavin, that's all 11 softball games that we had the joy of watching down there in the Austin area this past week. And congratulations to not only our winners, but everybody that made it to the state championship game down there in Austin, because that's a tough thing to do. I mean, it's such an honor to be able to play in a state championship game. So we hope you enjoyed the experience, and thanks so much for tuning in to UIL Spotlight. And of course, we couldn't do this without our sponsors, as in Baylor Scott and White Health, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your Texas Ford dealers, and a special shout out to our people, Focus Point Sports, for all of the highlights and the interviews that you got to see today. That'll do it for us. I'm Mallory Hartley, that's Gavin Moritz, and we will see you next week for another episode of UIL Spotlight, and we're going to be taking a look at the baseball state championships.